documented evidence of what's gone on, like emails from people associated with Feeding Our Future saying that if you don't approve new minority-owned businesses, that accusations of racism are going to fly all over the news. Like, it feels a little dead to rights at this point.
And again, it goes back to what I said in the A block. If you were to call out on this fraud, you go, you hate Somalians. Why are they all Somalians? You hate us. You hate us. No, we hate the people who are doing it.
Jessica Tarlov, one of the co-hosts on Fox News, has recently found herself addressing an issue far more complicated than the usual back and forth seen at the debate table. During what began as a routine discussion, she stepped into a topic that has grown too large to ignore: the concerns surrounding oversight and management within a Minnesota state program connected to Governor Tim Walz. For years, various auditors, state employees, and investigative reporters have pointed out weaknesses, inconsistencies, and gaps in how the program operated. Those warnings are now receiving national attention. While no public official has been accused of direct involvement, the broader system around the program is being criticized for lacking strong structure and accountability. Money moved quickly, oversight appeared uneven, and internal checks didn't seem to keep pace with the scale of the program. What should have functioned as an organized, tightly monitored state initiative instead looked increasingly disordered, raising questions about leadership, supervision, and long-term planning. Tarlov's commentary highlighted how stories like this don't simply disappear. Once enough reports surface and enough voices raise concerns, the conversation shifts from politics to responsibility. And at this point, the situation is too significant for anyone on camera or in office to brush aside.
The DNC is also paying off her bill, so the second it gets slightly bigger, they're plugged into the industrial complex of insert whatever need, homelessness, government welfare, etc., and then you see it all just goes to waste because it all is being locked from. In the Times piece, when they talk about the whistleblower retaliation, saying that the Walz administration was using monitoring and threats to make sure that they couldn't come forward, those are really serious allegations that he's going to have to deal with. There are other state officials, like Amy Klobuchar, I shouldn't say state officials, Senators Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith. I don't think they like this. I don't think that they would be interested in this. And it'll be fascinating to follow kind of the fallout from it because it's not going to stop, right? This is kind of like snowball going down the hill super fast at this point. And they have a lot of documented evidence of what's going on.
The only thing I'm going to take responsibility for is putting like 2 people in jail. After what? I don't know, is it like a decade, $1 billion, in which they ripped off the elderly, infants, the sick, the hungry. They should be executed, right? This guy shows up. Hey, I arrested you. No, you're like the guy who shows up and eats for free pizza, but you didn't help any of us move the furniture. Hey guys, I'm here. What you're seeing is the ultimate opportunity cost of electing a vacuous virtue signaler with no skills at all. While he was pushing tampons and trans and men's rooms, the Somalis were ripping off the state like it was a 24-hour mini mart in Philadelphia. This is what happens when you elect a person who will say anything, but is incapable of doing anything. His party, they are the ultimate in self-serving, self-seeking selfishness. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They realize that there is a reward in saying yes to everything without having any responsibility.
Greg Gutfeld's remarks reflect a broader criticism that has often been directed at Minnesota's political leadership under Governor Walz. Critics argue that certain policies, while well-intentioned, have created large and complex political networks that are difficult to oversee. When programs grow faster than accountability systems, gaps appear, and in those gaps, misuse of funds and administrative failures can take root. The concern isn't about any one community, but about the structure of governance itself. When policy decisions emphasize signaling values over building strong oversight, the result can be disconnected systems that fail to work together. Instead of unified management, you end up with parallel programs that follow different expectations, making them harder to monitor and easier to exploit. Questions have also been raised about political campaigns and local leadership dynamics in Minneapolis, suggesting that internal divisions and fragmented priorities may contribute to weakened oversight. These issues, critics say, point to a broader pattern affecting state operations. Scott Jennings expanded on this by emphasizing the scale of the administrative failures and the national implications. He argued that some national democratic strategists appear interested in reproducing similar political models elsewhere, a move he warns could repeat the same structural weaknesses now coming to light in Minnesota.
Crimes here are severe. It wasn't just typical Medicare or Medicaid fraud. In these instances, whole entire companies were being fabricated in order to take payments and steal funds. The same day that these fraudsters were indicted, another person from the Somalian community there pleaded guilty in a case called the Feeding Our Families case. Feeding Our Families was a nonprofit primarily run by people in the Somali community in Minneapolis. They embezzled $250 million of relief hunger funds. This was one of the largest of the COVID-era fraud schemes. Just 6 days after this round of indictments went down, another one was served, this time for a woman named Asha Farhan Hassan, also from Minneapolis. She was involved in a $14 million fraud against the state. Now, here's what she would do. Approach families in the community and have their children registered into autism therapy services, regardless if they had autism or not. Parents who took part in that scheme were given monthly kickbacks of somewhere between $300 and $1,500. So you had Somalis embezzling money from American taxpayers. The money is being sent back to Somalia, and there it's winding up in the hands of terrorists. In 2023, about $1.7 billion wound up back in Somalia of U.S. taxpayer money. What does this all mean politically? Well, for starters, Tim Walz continues to be one of the worst governors in America. Congratulations to Gavin Newsom for being off the hook for now. This is truly some of the worst stuff that we have ever seen out of state government. Yes, turned a blind eye to all of it. And now Minnesota taxpayers are footing the bill for terrorism in the Middle East. It's more than obvious Tim Walz should, well, if he doesn't resign, at least should be ousted in 2026 when it...
Warnings were sounding everywhere as people openly urged Kamala Harris's campaign to recognize that Walz's administration was spiraling out of control. But she brushed off the concerns, choosing political strategy over protecting taxpayers. At the same time, much of the mainstream media softened or redirected the story, avoiding the uncomfortable reality that shell companies were siphoning resources from Minnesota autism clinics and fraudulent housing programs. The signs were obvious, but the people who should have acted simply looked the other way.
Per bill, still, Jessica. The second it gets slightly bigger, then they're plugged into the industrial complex of insert whatever need, homelessness, government welfare, etc. And then you see it all just goes to waste because it all is being lost to fraud.
In the Times piece, when they talk about the whistleblower retaliation, saying that the Walz administration was using monitoring and threats to make sure that they couldn't come forward, those are really serious allegations that he's going to have to deal with. There are other state officials like Amy Klobuchar, I shouldn't say state officials, Senators Amy Klobuchar and Tina Smith. I don't think they like this. I don't think that they would be interested in this. And it'll be fascinating to follow kind of the fallout from it because it's not going to stop, right? This is kind of like a snowball going down the hill super fast at this point. And they have a lot of documented evidence of what's going on.
The only thing I'm going to take responsibility for is putting like 2 people in jail. After what? I know, is it like a decade, $1 billion in which they ripped off the elderly, infants, the sick, the hungry. They should be executed, right? This guy shows up.
The most shocking element is how Democrats touted him as the perfect vice presidential pick, a warm, relatable, fatherly figure. Yet his tenure in Minnesota tells a very different story, one built on deception and mismanagement. Behind the friendly image, significant fraud and misuse of public resources went unchecked, leaving taxpayers exposed and programs in disarray. The question now is clear: should Tim Walz be held fully accountable for the scope of this scandal? With so many warnings ignored and systems exploited, accountability seems long overdue. What's your take? Share your thoughts in the comments below.